You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Hey Ramblers, today's episode is brought to you by Fangoria. Since 1979, Fangoria has been the authority in the world of contemporary horror. As the only sanctuary for horror aficionados in its early days, it has now grown into an empire that expands beyond its celebrated magazine. From t-shirts, coffee mugs, beanies, enamel pins, there's something for every horror fanatic in your world, even if it's you. So head on over to shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or use code pencil and paper productions at checkout to get 20% off your first order or magazine subscription. Yes, it is a mouthful, which is why there are links in the show notes down below. That's shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or code pencil and paper productions at checkout for 20% off. Fangoria, first in fright since 1979.
Buy it or we'll tear your soul apart.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to the holliest, jolliest, fucking Christmassy show you're ever gonna hear in your life. It's the Horror Ramblings podcast, where we make snowmen out of elf guts. It's an interesting concept, but don't knock it till you try it. As always, I'm your host, Lester. I'm joined by the amazing Steven, as always. How you doing today, man?
Doing all right. I'm getting ready for this Christmassy holiday season because by the time everybody is talking and listening to this, I'm getting ready to just be out the door and be off of work for about a week.
Yeah, so it's coming.
I'm looking forward to it.
You know, it's it doesn't feel like the holidays this year. I don't know if it's just because, you know, I feel like the whole country's like a dumpster fire right now.
It is.
And I just... people everywhere are struggling, and, you know, it's 30 degrees one day, it's 50 degrees the next day. It's all over the place, and I don't know, I'm not feeling very Christmassy, I guess.
Sure. I can understand.
You know, I'm ready for this year to be over, as weird as that sounds. Like, this year hasn't been particularly bad. It hasn't been the best, but yeah, I feel like people kind of get away from the holidays. Everybody gets into the hustle and bustle of, I gotta buy, I gotta get stuff, I gotta, you know, go see all this family. And I think sometimes people sort of take away the meaning. And I'm not even getting into like the religious meaning of things, because some people just do Christmas to do Christmas. They don't look at all the Christmassy stuff. I look at it as a promise of change for the year, because I feel like your change for the new year can begin at the end of the previous year. And not just New Year's Eve. I feel like when we start Christmas break all the way until we come back to the new year, I feel like that is a time to sort of meditate on your own changes that you want to make. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way. I just think that we don't always express it. So,
sure.
But
no, I could get behind that. And I feel like the people who stress over buying presents and getting gifts and whatnot, if you can't afford it and you're worried that people are going to be upset with you because you can't buy them gifts, you are surrounding yourself with some garbage ass people. Because yes. I will tell you point blank, if I had an opportunity to either get a gift from someone or just spend the day with them and just in their company, I think I would prefer their company over a gift.
Yeah.
And I'm probably one of the more antisocial people in the world, but I'm talking about friends and family, you know, people that I know, people that I want to be around, and I could give a shit if I get a gift now until the end of the year, you know, or the rest of my life. I don't care. You know, you want to get me a gift, great. If you don't, it's cool. You know, it shouldn't have to be about that. I just love the time.
Yeah.
The cheer, the treats, you know, we'll get together and we'll have a feast of just snack foods and junk food and whatever else. It doesn't matter.
I mean, hell, your gift to me can be surprising me by making me some hot chocolate and bringing it into me, be like, here you go, man.
Maybe put some peppermint schnapps in there, just for good measure.
Get it just right,
That's your jam.
Every time I think of peppermint schnapps now, I think about the Krampus movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about when I think she's the aunt in it, when she's like, "Come on, kids, I'll teach you how to make peppermint schnapps."
Yeah.
I can't think of her name, and it upsets me because she passed away. I think maybe last year or a year before. It's been maybe a few years. She was in.
Now I'm gonna have to look that up.
She was in 2.5 Men. She was the housekeeper in it.
Oh,
Can't think of her name.
Damn it!
And she was fantastic.
Hang on, hold on. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
And while you're
I'm
looking
for her name.
while you're looking that up real quick, I saw an interesting argument the other day, and I don't know how to feel about it. But somebody was talking about the movie Trick or Treat, and they were talking about Krampus, and they were like, "I'm sorry, but I think Krampus should be put at the same level as Trick or Treat. It's a film that was slept on that is fantastic."
By the same guy too.
And and I actually really agree with that. I think Krampus was fantastic, and it's getting a sequel.
Finally.
Yeah, but I hope it doesn't fall into the same sort of thing that Trick or Treat has, where it's like every year you hear, yeah, there's a promising sequel that's going to be coming out, and we're still waiting.
Conchata Farrell.
There it is.
That's her name. And yes, 2.5 Men, Krampus.
Does it say?
Bunch of stuff.
Does it say when she passed?
She passed October 12th of 2020.
Okay, so it's been a few years.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was fantastic, and I loved her in that movie. She just she's got the best lines. I think the two lines that I love in the movie are that one where she says, "Come on, kids, I'll teach you how to make peppermint schnapps." And when she walks into the house at first, and she's like, "Looks like Martha Stewart threw up in here." But that movie has a great cast, like all the way around. It's got the mother from Hereditary. I'm horrible with names.
Toni Collette.
Yeah, she's in it. The one guy, he's like a comedian, but he's been in a bunch of stuff. There's two guys that are in a bunch of funny stuff normally that are in it.
Adam Scott, I think is who you're thinking of.
And then
he's one of those that has apparently been around a lot longer than I realized.
Yeah.
Because I turn around every so often and I find him in a movie that I didn't realize he was in. And it was like a role from way back when before he, I guess, popped.
Yeah.
And it just surprising.
He was in a series, actually, that we sort of fell upon by accident. It was called Ghosted.
Yes. I hated they canceled that shit. Yeah,
like,
it was a good show.
I wish someone would pick that up and maybe do just like one more season where they sort of just get everything tied together, because I really wanted more, and then I found out that they weren't making any more episodes. I guess it had got canceled, and then they decided to somehow they got funding to bring it back for a few more episodes. So it had been canceled, but partially brought back so they could do like a few more episodes, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's just another example of a great show that probably got canceled for some stupid reason.
Yeah.
But man,
no, it was solid.
But anywho, before we get into the meat of the show here, was there any kind of news tidbits that you had? I know you tend to have more news tidbits than I do.
Yeah, I picked up a few. It seemed like it was a little bit of a slower news week than usual, but there were some interesting little bits in here. A lot of casting I noticed, so I guess we're just preparing for 2024. First and foremost, let's talk about Terrifier 3, because a lot of cast members got confirmed coming back to that. Obviously, we knew David Howard Thornton was going to come back as Art. I don't think that was a big surprise. I'm pretty sure we thought Lauren Lavera was going to come back as Sienna from Part 2. So she's been confirmed.
She is.
The kid that...
She is gorgeous. I'm sorry, but I just have to say it again. She is gorgeous.
She's quite a looker.
The scene in Terrifier 2 where she's in the shower, and it's, they don't really show nudity. They just kind of show her figure and everything. She is just... I'm sitting there watching this like, oh my goodness. And it wasn't even... I wasn't even looking at her in... And this might sound weird. I wasn't looking at her in like a sexual way. When I watched that, it was... I guess you could say it was like a sensual sort of thing, but I wasn't thinking of, oh man, normally when you see a nude scene, you're like, oh yeah, I can think of all the...
I'd plow that.
Yeah, like that just real vulgarness. But just when I'm watching that scene and I see her, I'm just like, she is just a very beautiful young woman. She's got a beautiful figure. And it's weird because it made me think of like throughout the movie, like she has beautiful eyes, she has a beautiful smile, like just a whole package is just. I don't know if I could meet her in person because I would probably get a little flustered if I'm being honest.
Be like, whew.
She'd
Hot in here.
be like, "What's going on? Nothing. Don't worry about it. Not a damn thing."
You know, I've often wondered how you would try to explain that because, especially in today, where you have to be very careful about what you're saying and how you say it, because I've seen my fair share of women that I've found. There's some that I'm just like, oh, she's cute. And then there's, like you said, you got those ones that are just like, oh my God. Like if I met her in person, I would just be like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I couldn't speak. And it's, like you said, it's nothing sexual. It's just something about them in general. You look at them, their eyes, they're just everything, their smile, their overall beauty. I don't even really know how to describe it. Just from head to toe.
Just like with the film. When I first watched her in the film, before they even got to the scene where she was in the shower, there was just something about her that was almost captivating. Like she really pulls you into who she is. And then you get to that scene and you see her figure and there's this delicate beauty to it, but you know that she's strong as well. And I mean, yes, I think that is sexy as hell, but I wasn't thinking of it in that sort of aspect. It was just one of those things where you sort of hope you meet women like that, but you also know that you will get tongue-tied because there's just something about them that is just, I guess, captivating. I guess that's the best way I can put it. I hope she's not listening to this right now going, this guy's a fucking weirdo.
Well, no, I hope she understands what we're trying to say. That was the kind of the point I was trying to get to is like, how do you express that without coming off like you're a creep, right. Because... I would imagine women have this. That's one stereotype that I'm gonna pop the bubble on right now. Women have the same reactions as men do. We're all human. So when women, there was always that big horror movies stereotypes. They do this shit where men are the horny ones and women, they never get horny. Bullshit. Women get horny.
They're worse than us.
Women also get flustered and tongue-tied at a man, or, you know what, it doesn't have to be a man. Women, men, same, men, women. We all get, if we find somebody attractive, we all get flustered, we all get blah, blah, blah. But how do you express that without coming off like a creep?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at, I mean, I would love to say to someone, I just find you to be absolutely captivating and stunning, and I'm not trying to be a creep,
Right?
Just letting you know that my eyes see you differently than maybe this guy over here.
Yeah.
Can't help it. But yeah, way off topic.
You're good.
Point being, she's coming back.
Yeah.
Her brother, Elliot Fullman, he's coming back. And Victoria, Samantha Scafaldi, I think's her name, or Scafidi. Scafidi? That's what it looks like. There is no L. Scafidi. I'm just going to stick with it. From Part 1 and 2, she's coming back. And I forgot, who was Chris Jericho in Part 2? Because they also said he's returning too. Was he an orderly or something?
I think he might have been an orderly.
That's what I was trying to
remember.
To connect that dot. Yeah.
But maybe we'll have to look that up and see if there's a picture of him in it and see.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Because when they said he was returning, I was like, who the fuck was he? And then I thought maybe the orderly at where Victoria was at. So I thought, well, that would make a little bit more sense because I don't remember seeing him throughout the entire movie. But anyway, yeah, he's coming back. So it just seems like they're going to continue on with where they left off from 2. So I'm excited.
Yeah, he was the orderly. I just looked it up.
Okay. Awesome. My brain remembered something for a change. Where else were we? Oh, okay. So I posted up, I don't know if anyone saw this, but Saw 11 is apparently happening. And the only thing that I gleaned from this, other than they're going to be doing another Saw movie, I don't know if it's going to take place in the past, which you're cheating at that point. You're finding these little crevices in which you can keep pulling from. I'm glad for it. I'm still excited to see 10, but how many little rabbit holes can you crawl down?
Right.
Until you start to cause some continuity errors. But the two guys who wrote Saw 10 and I think they also wrote Jigsaw and Spiral, they are not returning. So I guess they're done with their run of Saw movies for now. So.
I'm okay if they bring Tobin Bell back, but I hope they do it in an elegant enough way, like you said, to where it doesn't cause continuity issues. Because I think the franchise realized that they need him to a degree.
Oh, yeah.
I will even go this far. Tobin Bell is to Saw what Robert Englund is to Nightmare on Elm Street. I will go that far. I truly believe that.
I mean, we've seen... Think about it. Out of iconic characters, we'll even throw Chucky in the mix because Brad Dourif is to Chucky.
Yeah.
As Freddy is to England or vice versa. Anyway, point being, actors who are iconic for those characters, and out of Freddy and Chucky, we've both seen them remade with different actors, doesn't land the same way. I'm sure it would be no different if they tried to replace Tobin Bell. It's not going to land the same way because you're not going to have somebody who has the same energy, the same creepiness. And Katrina was even, she was like, how the fuck are they doing another one? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, well, they've got to explain it somehow because they can't just keep making these. I was like, yeah, they can. They've skirted around bringing him back before. They just, now that they brought him back, obviously they're going to probably try to keep going down that path. But I just kind of tossed this out, and she was like, yeah, they'd probably do that. Maybe he's got a twin brother. I don't know.
You never know.
We've heard crazier things in other horror films.
I know what they need to do to throw everybody off. There is they need to do a I know he didn't start doing what he did until way later in life, but maybe they need to do a young Saw movie, and they can cast Macaulay Culkin. That way everybody starts thinking about that Home Alone conspiracy theory that he grew up to become Jigsaw.
There's so much there that you could do and tie that in. It would just be beautiful.
Can you imagine the heads that would spin? Oh, man.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my God, no.
He's not home alone this time. Oh.
More casting that I found. So I'm almost positive I heard that they were doing a Smile 2, and I guess they're going with a different lead, so we're not going to be following the same girl who... I can't remember her name. She's got a very unique name. It's Kevin Bacon's daughter was the lead in Smile. I'm almost right.
Well, didn't she die at the end of that?
Well, they kind of left it a little vague because I think we were under the impression that trying to remember how that entity worked because it got into your head, and then
they showed it.
They were in that cabin.
They showed it like
and
climb.
It burned down, right?
I think they showed it climb like inside of her, and then the cop that she had been dating or whatever, and they had split up or whatever. He came, and I could have swore that when he come in, she was smiling, and I thought she ended herself, but I could be wrong.
I mean, she's not coming back, so she's probably dead. I would assume she's dead because it ended on kind of a down note. But they apparently Naomi Scott, who I had to look her up. Apparently she was Princess Jasmine in Aladdin. That's where I know her from. I'm sure I've seen her in other stuff. That's the first thing that popped up. But she is going to be the lead in Smile 2 coming out in October of next year. So fingers crossed it'll be good. They don't run this one into the ground with bad ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I think Smile got a lot of hype, and I enjoyed it. I think it got way more hype than it needed.
Yeah. No, I could. Yeah. It's not a bad idea. No. It's not a bad concept. And I wouldn't even say I've seen worse horror films.
And fun fact, it was created based off of some YouTube video. Because the actress that, in the first movie, the actress, the woman that first kills herself in front of that girl is actually in the YouTube video.
Oh, okay.
And she's being haunted by an entity. And then at this point in the movie, they just sort of lead off of the YouTube video, which there's quite a few films that have come out off of like Mama was based off of a YouTube video. Lights Out was based off of a YouTube video. Quite a few of them. There was something else I was going to tell you, and it'll come to me, I'm sure, at some random point, but it had to do with in the realm of It Smiles, of Smiles. They have It Smiles. Jeez Louise.
And
they have the It Follows movie. They're doing a sequel to that called They Follow.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't have a whole lot of context for it. I do know that the 2 kids that survived at the end of it, I guess those actors are coming back for it.
Okay.
So I don't know if this thing's going to like spread and become multiple entities or how it's going to work exactly. I know in the original film it was sort of a symbol of, you know, the dangers of sex.
Right.
So I mean, I guess if it spreads into more things, I guess that would sort of make sense, I guess. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with it. I thought the original It Follows was pretty good. Not one of my most favorite films ever, but it was an interesting watch. So
Yeah, creepy enough.
yeah, but
The next bit of casting news I got, I'm really excited about. And I think when I posted this up on Facebook, I didn't quite read the headline correctly because I thought it was wants to and not had been cast. So I was excited once I did a double take and reread it. So I corrected my post. But John Waters has been cast. Legendary director John Waters has been cast as the creator of the Good Guy doll for season 3 of Chucky. And that really interests me in a way that not just because John Waters has been cast, but the fact that they're even going to this level with Chucky. Like, why does this even matter? You know, I mean, I can't imagine the Good Guy dolls are just now satanic creatures of voodoo or whatever. And I don't know. I'm curious why we're going to the creator of the Good Guy.
Yeah, I will say this. I hope that there is a joke somewhere in there about Chucky killing him before.
There has to be, yeah. There has to be.
Whether it's there's some acid somewhere and he's like, or even just bluntly says, you look like a guy I killed a few years ago. Like, I hope.
I can see that, yeah. Now, have you watched any of season 3 of Chucky?
I haven't had the opportunity yet.
Okay.
So I need to. I've had a lot of it spoiled for me, so you're not going to hurt me if you spoil anything.
Well, in regards to this casting and why they would go to the creator of the Good Guy doll, the only thing I can think of is he would probably have a Good Guy doll available. And as of some of the more recent outings, it seems like Good Guy dolls are in short supply. Like they've pretty much destroyed a number of them to where he doesn't have backups like he did in previous seasons and in other movies where he just had a supply of Chuckies laying around. So I have a hunch that that's going to be the part of it that kind of comes into play is he needs another body because he's in a bad spot right now. Let's just put it that way. And he's going to need a new body. So I think that's what that's going to boil down to. Now, will it be a fix? I don't know, but at least it's something.
Well, didn't they bring... There was a clip of Brad Dourif actually as Charles Lee Ray, wasn't there? Like an older Charles Lee Ray in one of the commercials?
I don't know. I guess maybe I didn't see that.
Yeah, because I could swear...
Unless they were doing something else.
I could swear that they showed something like that for this season. It was him, with white hair and everything. So I'm almost wondering if Chucky somehow manages to regenerate his human body or something strange like that, or and he goes to seek out a Good Guy doll so that he has a fallback because he doesn't want to be in a human body that's starting to age. And I know the doll is starting to age as well, but yeah, I could have swore I saw a commercial with him. It's just a very brief instant that they show him.
I'll have to look that up because I don't know if I've seen that or not.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Anyways, as you were saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the last 2 stories I've got are surprises for me. I'm a little excited. I don't think I would have been excited or as excited about this one had it not been for the last film being quite unexpected for me. But it seems that William Brent Bell, I'm not 100% sure who he is, but he is apparently in active development for Orphan 3. And Isabel Furman is expected to come back as Esther. So I'm intrigued. I'm curious how you go about that because where we saw what the last one did and where they left off in the first one, I'm intrigued. They really surprised me with the last film. And I say that not just in the sense of how the first one kind of went down.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure what the twist was going to be. And then when you saw it, it's like, okay, well, now that we know, yeah, how do you do this again and make it more surprising? And then, of course, the prequel, if I guess that would be the more appropriate term, surprised the shit out of me how they approached that. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I want that kind of same level of, it doesn't have to be a twist. It just needs to be, what are you doing to make this more interesting overall? Because that's kind of what sets it apart now. You know, you're doing these interesting takes on this idea, and she just happens to be in the middle of it all. I don't know. I'm curious.
Right.
It can't just be a standard slasher at this point. You gotta keep it fresh. You gotta keep it snappy.
It has to keep adapting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also,
like she does.
Also, real quick, while I'm thinking about it, I just looked up the Brad Dourif thing.
Mm-hmm.
I sent it to you so you can see it. I sent it to you on,
Okay.
so you can check it out when you get a chance.
Let me take a look.
Yeah, in the trailer, he's just there for a brief second. It's for season 3, part 2. So,
Okay.
but they're like, we don't know if he's going to be a new character or if Charles Lee Ray is back.
Oh, you're talking about that picture right there?
Yeah, they show.
Or is it within the link?
Oh, you have to click the link.
Oh, okay. There. Okay. Huh. All right.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had seen that or not.
No, I have not.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like if you blink, you miss it in the trailer.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
I'm wondering, like, that would be an interesting concept. What if a human Chucky goes to visit the creator of the Good Guy dolls to get Good Guy dolls because he found some way to come back, and maybe he's not the original Chucky. Maybe Charles Lee Ray had a brother nobody knew about, or something crazy like that, and his brother just happens to look like him, or maybe his brother was in a coma or something. You know, like all kinds of possibilities. But
Yeah. Okay. That intrigues me even more. Last one, and of course, this is not going to be praise for everybody. You know, I'm gonna talk about this real quick. People who just want to be cynical all the time and hate on shit for just because of something that is presented in front. If you don't like it, you know, you don't have to comment and bring down the rest of the room. Just gonna lay that out there, because I'm getting sick and tired of hearing people bitch and complain about one thing in this story that I'm gonna bring up, and I don't understand it. You know, I guess I haven't quite found the correlation as to why people hate on this production company just because of its name alone, when in my mind, I've seen some pretty decent stuff come out of it. Nothing like, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing ever. But I've seen some decent stuff coming out of there. So Universal, and here it is, brace yourself, Blumhouse. Oh my God, Blumhouse is so terrible.
oh Lord,
But apparently they're teaming up with Lee Wanell again for another Universal monster movie.
okay.
And they're going to be adapting The Wolfman.
You know, I just saw a thing about that where they were doing a casting call. They needed like kids from certain ages for it, and I like at first I sort of just glanced over it, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I guess that confirms what I briefly saw, that they're doing another Wolfman.
And I have to look up the guy. Apparently, they've already cast the lead, Christopher Abbott, whose name did not ring a bell. But looking through his filmography, I may have seen him in something. Maybe not.
I'm gonna put something out here real quick, a hot take real quick.
Okay.
The Wolfman remake that came out a few years back. I say a few years back, but it was several years back. But with Anthony Hopkins, and I cannot think of the other guy's name.
Benicio del Toro.
Yes. That's actually a really good movie. And I don't care what anybody says about it. It is fantastic.
I enjoy it. I mean, we're talking about, you got solid actors.
And
You've got the director, Joe Johnston. That's an underrated director, I think, because if you take a look at the movies he has directed, he's directed some gems. And I would honestly say a lot of his movies are underrated.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I feel like that when I went to the movie theater to see that movie when it came out, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. And when I found out that it wasn't doing very well, I was kind of shocked, because
yeah.
it was solid. The story was solid. Everything was solid with it. I feel...
Yeah, I don't know what the problem was.
I think maybe at the time that it came out, people were just kind of like, I don't want to see werewolf movies right now.
Sure. Oh, I have one last thing. I forgot. But I am excited about that because The Invisible Man was...
Yes, very much so.
I love The Invisible Man. So I can't wait to see what they do with that. But this is just a fun little trivia bit that I want to throw out there. Well, not trivia. If you don't want to know... I feel like it's going to be hard to avoid because people are going to be It's being promoted out in the world. So if you wanted something, it's about Ghostbusters. What's the new one? Frozen Empire.
Yes.
Everything's an empire in 2024. New empire, Frozen Empire. So if you don't want to know, skip ahead 30 seconds and go. Slimer's coming back.
Yes.
There's apparently some promotional material out in the world, and Slimer's in it. So Slimer's back, baby.
That makes me happy.
Yep.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, okay, we're done talking about it. I just wanted to share that in case you missed it. I forgot about that. So there you go. Okay, so now we can move on and talk about what we want to talk about now.
Well, with it being the season and things going wrong, because let's be honest, things do go wrong around the house around the holidays, and you hear little bangs, you hear little creaks. It could be elves. It's more likely that it's going to be Gremlins, though.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a franchise. I will say it's a franchise. I know it's 2 movies, and then they've done the Secrets of the Mogwai. But I'm just going to say it's a franchise because with the 2 films, it really holds its own.
And yeah, I wanted to talk about this movie because obviously we're at the holiday season, and I know that in some aspects, some people would be like, well, is it really a horror movie? Is it really a Christmas movie? Yes, it's a Christmas movie because it takes place at Christmas and there's a lot of Christmassy things going on, unlike Die Hard, where there's nothing Christmassy about it. If John McClane was killing terrorists at Nakatomi Plaza with candy canes, Hershey Kisses, Christmas lights, tinsel, Christmassy stuff, then I will give it to you. It's a Christmas movie, action movie, because he's killing people with Christmassy things. Home Alone is a Christmas movie because it takes place at Christmas and he's defending his house. Okay? You can spin that any other way you want, but the fact that it takes place at Christmas and there's a lot of Christmassy themed stuff, it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
There's the music and everything. This movie starts with a jammin' Christmas song. Okay? Anyway, yes, it's a Christmas movie, and it is a horror movie. This is proto PG-13, okay? We've talked about this. We have PG-13 horror that exists in the world today. Gremlins is the prototype for a PG-13 horror film because, keep this in mind, this was in 1984 when the movie came out. The PG-13 rating had not been developed. This movie, along with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Spielberg caused this shit, okay? In a nutshell, he caused the PG-13 thing because you saw Jaws, that was PG. Kind of think PG-13 fits it better.
Yeah.
Then we come to Temple of Doom, and we come to Gremlins. There's a lot of gory stuff in there, but it's not like super gory to the point where you're just like, but you wouldn't want to subject little kids to it. I've done that, and it didn't go over well. So, yeah, you might want to kind of put an age limit on there somewhere. PG-13 is what this should have been.
Yeah.
So this would be your first PG-13 horror film in essence.
Yeah.
Because of this movie, we have it. This is one of the reasons. So yes, it's a horror movie. It's a comedy. And we've talked about that too, horror comedies. There's a delicate balance. This does it amazingly. Now, would I call Gremlins 2 a horror movie? No. That kind of leans more toward the comedy, but I still love it.
Yeah.
This one has more of a horror element to it, which is why I feel like it's fitting to talk about here. We'll talk about Gremlins 2 on the other podcast. We'll bring it up later because I do want to talk about that because I didn't realize it had haters. I grew up for so many years thinking, oh, everybody loves this movie. Why wouldn't you love this movie?
Fantastic.
It has haters. Yeah, I love it, but we won't go down that hole. Gremlins. What are we talking about? Gremlins. So what's your first memory of watching this movie?
I watched it at my uncle's house. We rented it from, I think it was Blockbuster at the time. It was before like Family Video took over everywhere. And we got it with the Christmas specials because they had a bunch of Christmas specials that they were doing like real cheap to rent.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there. We had popcorn and everything else. My uncle kind of had this cynical grin on his face, and he said, "You've never seen a Christmas movie like this." And I was awestruck. I was terrified and could not help but laugh because the minute the first second that I had seen one of the evil gremlins, they were good about making them seem scary at first.
Mm-hmm.
Then they started doing a bunch of crazy shit, and my cynical little self thought it was hilarious because I felt like the gremlins were doing what all of us think about doing. I think that the gremlins are really an example of people's intrusive thoughts or impulsive thoughts, however you want to put it. They're just, they're a physical manifestation of it.
Sure.
And I just remember loving it. I loved everything about it. I thought it was hilarious. I had a blanket wrapped around myself.
Mm-hmm.
And after the flashing gremlin did his thing, I would walk. I had pajamas and stuff on underneath, but I would walk around going with my with my blanket because I thought it was the funniest thing ever. And now it's just a staple. I try to watch it at least once through the year, normally around the holidays. My son loves Gremlins, and all my other kids will love Gremlins, I'm sure. So yeah, I just remember loving the movie the very first time that I saw it, and I was probably, I'd say 9, maybe a little younger, not much younger, but maybe a little, maybe about 7 to 9, somewhere in there, I would say. But yeah, I remember loving it. So what about you?
Okay. This movie holds a special place for me because this film is the very first movie that I genuinely remember going to a theater to see. However, keep in mind I was 4 years old and I barely have any memories of this. Fragments that I have that I'm holding on to. But there was a theater in a town that it was like 2 over from where I lived growing up.
Yeah.
That theater does not exist anymore, unfortunately. But it was like a little 2-screen theater in this small little town, and they were showing Gremlins. And I remember, I don't know if I watched the entire thing. Because again, remember, I'm 4 years old, and I have, like I said, fragments, little things that I can remember about being there in the theater. But I don't remember every scene. The one I can remember the most, and that sticks in my head with the memories that I have, is the kitchen scene. For some reason, that's the one I can remember in my head, sitting in the theater watching, Gremlins. And so that's the farthest back I remember. I know I watched it in theaters. This would be the very first movie I can remember seeing in theaters, if not being the first. Then, as far as growing up with it, we recorded it off of, NBC or whatever, so all the good parts got cut out. So for years, I'm sitting there watching this heavily edited version, and it wasn't until I finally got my first physical copy of it. I don't know if I had a VHS copy. I want to say I did, but I'm not going to swear to it. But either VHS or DVD, once I finally got my own copy, then I could really see, the gore, the stuff that they cut out, and it was just so magical. And there's so much about this movie that I love, and I got to give a lot of credit to Joe Dante and how he directed the movie, because he has a sensibility that I understand people think maybe goes a step too far in the Looney Tunes direction, but how he did it here, and I think that's why it works so much in part 2.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the things that turns people away from part 2 is how it ramps up the Looney Tune-ness of it all. But as you said with this, there's that moment where they kind of get silly and crazy and stuff like that, and I think that's what it needed, because it put your guard down.
Yeah.
Because one minute you're seeing them as terrifying creatures just wreaking havoc, and you don't know how to feel. And then you start seeing them kind of be a little silly, but at the same time, you're just like, yeah, it's silly, but they're still kind of creepy. Then they kind of amp them up a little bit and give them some kind of cartoony-esque behavior. So then you're just like, okay, this is kind of getting funny. This is silly. And then they take a turn, and we go back to them being, creatures that are going to murder
Yeah.
and destroy you.
To me, like a scene that really kind of solidified the fact that these gremlins were just so insane. Like that is the thing about them. They are complete anarchy. They are just bottled up insanity because one minute, like you said, they're like the Looney Tunes. The next minute, they're little killing machines.
Yeah.
The kitchen scene is one scene that does stick with me a little bit, but as weird as it sounds, the scene that sticks with me the most, and it's probably a scene that sticks with a lot of people, is when they're in the movie theater and they're watching Snow White, and they're all dancing in their seats, and the high voice is hi-ho, hi-ho. To me, that scene right there shows you everything you need to know, like up until that point, and you see that. You're just sitting there going, they just got done killing a bunch of people in this town, and now they're singing along with Snow White in the movie theater. These things are insane.
Yeah.
And another thing that I appreciated, and they have a way of doing it in the movie quite a bit. Obviously, Gizmo is a good gremlin. You know, he's not evil like the other ones. But they have a way of, sometimes when the gremlins are doing something, or they're singing along with something or something, you also see Gizmo sort of doing it to a degree.
Yeah.
And I love that they do that because it shows that even though they are very different creatures, they are actually one and the same.
Yeah.
And I love that they do that because it shows you just how this cute little creature can become this nightmare. And that was something I always loved about the movie. Like, I don't know if they have them out there yet or not. If they don't, somebody needs to make them. They have those Squishmallows that you can reverse, and it's 2 stuffed animals. They need to make a Mogwai gremlin one.
Hell yeah.
They would probably make millions, and it shows you at the flip of a hat, the gremlins can go from one thing to another. I think it would be interesting if they showed if they maybe did something, if they do another movie, which I wish they would, and I wish it would be on a huge scale. I mean, I'm talking Spike comes back again, Stripe comes back again, hops in the ocean or hops in a big lake in a town somewhere. Like, that would be badass.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool if somebody figured out a way to reverse them turning into the gremlins.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it would work, but it would be kind of cool to see. But
no, there's some interesting concepts out there, and I'm not really sure what you could do for a third one other than kind of go on some kind of global scale, because you started with a small town, you moved into the big city, but they never actually got out into the city.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna step it up hard, or I don't want them to remake it per se.
Yeah.
But if you could do a legacy sequel, you can keep certain people out of it. I could give a shit if Zach Galligan came back because, he's an asshole, and that would just give him another reason to be an asshole. Yes, I said it. Again, for the second or third or fourth, however many times I've said it. If you meet Zach Galligan and you do not pay him money, he will be a dick to you. I'm just warning you now.
Hell.
If I'm wrong, then he needs to get on the show and defend himself, because that's how he's treated, at least us.
There was another, and I'm pretty sure the time that we met him, I'm pretty sure that I bought an autograph for my son, if I remember right. If it was either with you or it was another time, I bought an autograph from him, and he was still a prick.
Okay, see? Money doesn't even matter either. I don't know what he wants. I don't know why he's being a dick to people.
I feel like he's just there.
And other people.
And I understand if it's, like, I guess I would understand to a degree if he just gets tired of the same old gremlin questions, but guess what? Don't go to the conventions.
Yeah. I know you've been in Hatchet and Waxworks and all this other shit. I know your filmography, dude. But you know what? People remember you from Gremlins.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. If you're that big of a whore for some extra cash, cool. Like, I get it. But at least fake it. If you don't want to be there, at least fake it. Because there's children, there are kids that want to come and see you because they know you from Gremlins and they think you're the coolest thing ever. And you're being rude to children. It's like, come on.
I mean, even Katrina, like I think we went to a convention up in Louisville one time. And when we were kind of going around this area, I spotted him. I was like, oh, shit, hey. And, went to introduce myself. That was the first time I met him, and he wasn't as much of a dick, but he was still kind of closed off, like he didn't want to talk. And, again, it was just like, what's your deal? But Katrina was just like, who is he? And I was like, Billy from Gremlins. And that was just the first thing that popped in my head that I knew she would know.
Yeah.
Didn't seem like he liked that very much. And I was like, hey, what do you got going on? Hatchet 3. Okay. All right, well, I guess that's all you want to talk about, so I'm just gonna mosey along.
And I will say, I've met some of the other performers from Gremlins. Met Dick Miller at one of the first conventions that I went to. I really thought I saw my dad for a second because he looks a lot like my dad. Well, he did. He's since passed away, sadly.
Dick Miller, not his dad.
Yeah, not my dad. Could better specify that. Dick Miller, though, he was like the nicest guy. Like he was just a grandpa type. We chit-chatted a little bit, and he asked me if I was enjoying the convention. We talked about his filmography, and he's like, yeah, he said, most younger people know me from Gremlins. He's like, which was a lot of fun. And then he talked about the movie, but then he talked about other stuff as well. And I surprised him because I have an autograph from him, and he is hanging out with the the robot from Lost in Space.
Nice.
In the picture that I have, he had a bunch of Gremlin pictures out there, and that was the one that I wanted. He's got a martini, and he's like toasting with the robot, and they're like he's laughing and stuff, and it's fantastic. But he was such a gem. He was such a nice guy. Like I wish that Zach Galligan would have taken a few notes from him about how to treat people because every experience I've had with him with Zach Galligan has just been shit. So.
And again, if there's people out there who've had a different experience, I'd love to hear about it and what you did. And maybe we can figure out why he's being a dick to so many people, because I don't understand it. But we're not here to talk about him being a dick. For fuck's sake, man. It's disappointing. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm just, somebody has to call these celebs out who are rude. Might as well be us.
But another person that was actually instrumental in this, and I guess I should have thought about this from the start, is not only was Joe Dante an important factor, but the writer of this film was Chris Columbus, who, if people don't know, he's got a filmography about a mile long, and I know that people have seen his movies. We're talking about he directed the first 2 Harry Potter films, I think. Did Mrs. Doubtfire. I think he... I'm trying to sort out his writing. He co-wrote Goonies. I remember that. And damn, he's done so much. Bicentennial Man, 9 Months, Home Alone 2, and Home Alone. Yeah, he directed Home Alone, did he not?
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought he did.
Okay, so see, there you go, yeah. So he directed Home Alone and Home Alone 2, Adventures in Babysitting, which is I think it's a classic. That was like his first directing movie. Dude's killing it out there. A lot of his stuff I've seen and I love. So good pedigree right there all around. Although I can't speak for his movie Pixels, I'm not going to say anything about that because I've not seen it and I don't want to. just laying that out there. But yeah, good pedigree all around. Again, as we said, produced under Amblin, which is Spielberg's company. So it should work. On paper, you look at it and you're like, you got a solid director, solid writer, solid producer. This all should work. And it does.
And to be honest, I think, because I know from the stories I've heard about Spielberg, even as a producer, he's normally down the production team's throat about things. Like he watches things like a hawk. And I think this is, I'm gonna put it out here. I think this was during Spielberg's peak.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I would put that out there to a degree. I mean, I don't know. Movies like Gremlins just hit different, and they continue to hit different. Even after that's why they're classics.
I mean, here's a great example of things that would be different. If this movie was made today, I guarantee there are several things that would not be in the movie, and it's not for anything malicious or anything controversial. Like, I don't think there's anything in this movie that would be considered, oh, you can't say that today. I can't think of anything. I don't remember.
The only thing I can think that would be a little looked down upon would be when when Dick Miller's character, I can't think of his
Mr. Futter.
Thank you. When he's talking to, there's a few conversations he has. He has a few with Billy, he has a few with his wife, where he's talking about, well, this is American made, Yeah,
damn foreign cars. Yeah.
Yeah. And he makes some comments there, but obviously to me and you, that's not something that's offensive. But there's a lot of people that would be like, I don't know about that.
I don't even feel like what he said was offensive. I mean, he's just like, damn foreign TVs, damn foreign, Yeah, he's a person of that mindset. Just a guy fought in World War II. He's just he's an old-timey kind of guy. So that character wouldn't technically exist if you did a remake today.
Yeah.
Understandable. I wouldn't say that's we got to change it for the times. He just would not be that guy.
I feel like with the political environment, some people would misconstrue it and make it into an argument, if that makes sense.
And you know what? All right, so hopefully I can hang on to where I was going with
I'm
this.
sorry.
Another thing. No, but you brought up a good point. So my other co-host, podcast co-host, Lace from Super Mega Crash, she sent me a video the other day. And I don't know if I've ever talked about it here, but Bill Maher is a comedian that I used to love and admire.
Yeah.
And used to watch his show all the time. Then he took aim at Stan Lee and started criticizing everybody who seemed to like Stan Lee because he didn't understand why Stan Lee was so beloved. He didn't understand why someone who created comic book characters was, people were losing their minds over it. Couldn't wrap his head around it. And then pretty much said that every problem, and he said this on his show, every problem that's happening in this country right now is because of these people who like comic books and read comic books and lives in fantasy worlds. And he didn't take aim at a certain group. He took aim at all of us. Okay? And that did not set right with me. And then he doubled down on it again the next week. And look, I can take criticism and continue going, but this seemed like an outright attack. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you, dude. You can't even allow people the opportunity to just grieve their own way and have their own opinions without you coming in and belittling everybody, saying that we're all to blame for the problems in this country. It has fuck all to do with people who love comic books. I'm sorry that I need an escape from reality. I'm living in it. I want to, I'm doing what I can to deal with it. But at the end of the day, I don't want to live here all the time. And I'm going to go take 2 or 3 hours over here in Fantasyland with superheroes. And that's where I want to be. And if you don't like it, fuck you. I don't care.
Yeah.
So after his little tirade on comic book fans, and especially Stan Lee, a man I loved and admired all my life, I got offended. I've never really been offended by anything, but that one just kind of hit me hard. And this is coming from, again, a person I admired.
Yeah.
So I haven't watched his show in a long time. Ever since Stan died, pretty much. So it's been a couple of years. Then Lace had sent me a video the other day. And she's like, I know you don't like him, but I feel like this is a rare win for him in quite some time. And I watched this video, and that's the man that I loved and admired. That's the man that I respected when he would do these bits and really point out the hypocrisy in this world. And he took aim at everybody who turned even the most generous thing into a political statement or stunt. And he used Mr. Beast. And if no one knows who Mr. Beast is, he's like probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest YouTuber on YouTube. Millions upon millions of views, rakes in revenues, got candy bars now and all this other stuff. And he does charitable work. And what he was pointing out is, here's a man who helped blind people see. Here's a man who built a well for children in this village in South Africa, or I think it was South Africa, doing all this charitable work. And people were bitching about it, trying to villainize him for doing charitable work. Well, why should he be? He's just being a white savior for all the people in Africa. It's like, well, what the fuck did you do? The blind people, they don't want to see. They're in their own little their culture. You're taking away their identity by giving them eyes. It's like, what are you talking about? It's a disability, and he's helping it.
Yeah.
If you can get by with it, and that's the way you want to live, fine. But if you want your eyesight and he can help, it's just ridiculous,
I actually saw a video in regards to that. Someone was talking about, well, why did he have to record him given the the sight to the blind? Why did he have to record paying for the surgery and everything? And the reporter that was talking to this person was like, do you realize that he was bringing awareness to just how easy it is for these people to get the surgery, but that their insurance doesn't typically cover it? She's like, well, he was just doing it for the views. He was like, he was bringing awareness to something. Would you prefer that he did it in a cave somewhere where you couldn't see him? And they were like, well, that would have been better. Okay,
well, furthermore, here's another argument I'm going to make on that. When people say he's doing it for the views, of course he is. That's his fucking revenue stream. How else is he supposed to make the money that he's making without making these videos for people to watch? God damn it!
And that's what.
And this is where I have problems with fucking liberals. When people want to sit there and say you're fucking, liberal snowflake, whatever, because I don't like the fucking Republicans. I don't like these far right or far left leaning liberals either, who have to fucking politicize everything and have their fucking feelings hurt over every goddamn thing.
Yeah.
The thing that they would go up in arms about in this movie, and this the point I was trying to get to, was, oh my God, gremlins are smoking and drinking beer. The children, think of the children. Who the fuck cares?
You want to know?
I feel like that is your key point to say, okay, you don't want to be like a gremlin, so don't smoke and don't drink. There you go. You're pointing it right out to your kids. Yep. Do you want to be a gremlin? No. Well, that's what gremlins do. They smoke and drink, and you don't want to be that.
I'm just gonna put this out here, and maybe you'll agree with me on this. Everything has to be political now, and I'm sorry, but the funniest things to me are films like Gremlins, because they are so politically incorrect. But I have an idea for a movement, just real quick. Instead of people saying that they're liberal or saying that they're Republican or Democratic or whatever, I think now I'm just going to say that I'm a George Carlinist, because he had it right.
Amen.
He was aware that both sides sucked, that the game was rigged, and that they're all looking out for themselves. You want to know my political views? Watch George Carlin do stand-up.
Hell yes. No, I didn't even want to go down this road to get political, but no, it's just the more you hear about this stuff, I mean, when they say moderate, that's fucking me all over, I guess, because when you go too far one direction, I'm not on your side. You're a lunatic.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit, and when humor especially, I honestly at one point thought, and I can't think of anything again in this movie that would be risque and you can't do that today, but somewhere out there, someone would find it and they would just pick it apart and be like, well, you can't do that today. You just can't. And I know I've watched movies here recently where you see a scene and you're just like, would that fly today? But I always go back to Blazing Saddles. And I could give a shit, because that movie is hilarious and it knows why it is hilarious. And if you're not getting the joke, then that's too bad. You want to go live miserable. You want to sit there and complain about everything. Again, people who complain. I saw that this week and it drives me up the wall. There's just certain people who have to be negative about everything. And I don't understand if that is the world that you live in, that every piece of news or anything upcoming and you can't be even moderately excited for it. What kind of life are you living, man? New Godzilla vs. Kong trailer. Everybody's pissed. Well, Godzilla's running. I can't. We even talked about that before. You told me that the trailer had dropped, and I just watched it, and you said, "Well, what did you think?" And I was like, "I'm not sure." Yeah. And it was just because it caught me off guard. I didn't know what I expected, and then I saw it, and I was like, "Huh, that's new." And it was just kind of jarring, but I wasn't just like, I fucking hate this. This is the stupidest thing. Godzilla's running. I've seen Godzilla run before in a rubber suit. Look at the movie that, somebody said something about that. They were like, Godzilla doesn't run. And then they showed some other clips from some of the other movies. There was I can't remember which one it was, but Godzilla is flying by breathing the atomic breath out. Godzilla versus Hedorah.
And he's flying. And then the other movie where he gets a running start and he slides on his tail with his feet up in
versus
there.
Megalon. Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you expect? Like, these characters change, they adapt. I'm sorry, but after I watched the trailer for it and I thought about that and I was like, thinking of Godzilla Run, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's downright terrifying. And, who knows where they're fighting? They might be fighting in the hollow earth. Gravity and stuff works differently there. Maybe Godzilla's lighter there. Maybe Godzilla's able to run down, in the hollow earth. Maybe he's completely different. Yeah. Yes, Godzilla's changed. He's had a metamorphosis. And that was another thing that people were pissed about. Why is he pink? That's stupid.
Yeah.
It's a girl Godzilla. It has to be a girl Godzilla because it's pink. No, you fucking morons. Godzilla's just changing. Do you think Godzilla gives a shit if you're worried that he's pink? He doesn't give a shit. And the last I knew, they do all these Godzilla movies, and there's been times before where, and I know the 190s movie, which we will not talk about, because it's kind of...
Hey, I'll defend it.
Yeah.
I'll defend it all day.
I honestly, I thought the Godzilla in that looked interesting. I will say that. I thought it was an interesting choice for them to make him look different like they did. But Godzilla was able to change sex, to lay eggs and everything. We don't know, and let's be real. Godzilla is the physical manifestation of destruction.
Yeah.
So I don't think Godzilla cares if you're worried that Godzilla's pink or blue or red or orange or rainbow. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah. I mean, they did a Rainbow Mothra.
Godzilla's just gonna fuck your shit up. I mean, I don't know. I'm with you there. People just want to bitch about everything. The only thing I can... Go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. That's all I wanted to say. To live like that it just seems depressing.
Yeah, it seems like a miserable existence.
Be happy about something,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not your cup of tea, like the very first time I watched the Sonic trailer, where he looked like a mongrel, and everybody was like, what the hell is this? I did. I looked at it, was like, well, I'm not going to be watching that. And I stopped. That was the end of it for me until they changed it. And then I was like, okay, well, now I might, because I could tolerate looking at him. But no, I'm not going to tear anybody down for it. No. Who cares?
And, again, with like, I especially think when people are getting mad about things, I love when there's jokes made. Just like with the Sonic thing you were just saying, Disney released that Chip and Dale movie with all the cartoon characters, and there's Ugly Sonic, and he's signing autographs and stuff, and he's like, I didn't think I'd get work. I'm sorry, but that is hilarious.
Yeah, that was a good in joke.
Yeah, like. I don't know. I think people take things too serious anymore, and it turns into a big issue. And I'm kind of with you there. I don't know. I feel like people would bitch about Gremlins, especially if Gremlins got remade.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
I feel like people would want to mess with the formula of it. People would either want to go full-fledged comedy, or they'd want to go full-fledged horror. And I don't think that would work.
No, that's what makes this movie work, and I think that's why a lot of people have issues with part 2. Again, I love part 2 for what it is, but I'll talk about that in greater detail on a different episode. But here, this is a beautiful blend of comedy and horror. And as we kind of mentioned last week, because we were talking about and all through the house, you have to find that balance. And we've talked about that before, where horror comedy is a tricky situation, but Joe Dante, this isn't his first foray into it. I mean, look at The Howling.
Yeah.
He's done horror. And so, but he also has that Looney Tunes mentality.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, that anarchy, that's what works.
Yeah.
So he just kind of found a way to marry that and really amp up the anarchy.
Yeah.
So you can have a more vicious Looney Tunes character, and that's where you get the Gremlins.
You know what I would love to see? Because I feel like it would work really well. So a few years ago, they did a Mountain Dew commercial. It was like a Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah.
And it had Billy and his family, and they were...
See? Fucking shill.
And
coming back for a paycheck.
And it was really funny because like he had a daughter, and they all had Mogwais. Like all the kids had Mogwais and everything. And I always thought about that. It seemed like in the second movie especially, it seemed like some of the Mogwais that were born out of Gizmo, they weren't necessarily evil, but they had their little ringleader that was like, we got to eat the food, we got to transform. So in the Mountain Dew commercial that they did, it was him, and he was drinking some Mountain Dew, and his daughter was about to give her little gremlin some Mountain Dew, and he's like, let's not do that. Because hers was kind of, the stripe type gremlin, and he wasn't really like all that bad. He he was acting like a teenage girl, just like the girl in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it would be cool if they had a few, like, good Gremlins, but I think they should do a legacy sequel. They should do it in Florida. They take a trip to Florida to vacation for Christmas.
They'd fit right in.
And imagine a bunch of Gremlins in Florida on a golf cart, one driving, a couple working the pedals, with golf clubs, hitting the old guys on the golf course or something. I think that would be hilarious. And I think somewhere like that would work because it would be out of the norm for Gremlins.
Yeah.
But it would also, I don't know, Florida's a crazy place anyways, and those little anarchists in Florida, holy moly.
They'd fit right in.
Yeah, you know, I feel like that would be an interesting way to go. And it would be interesting to see if salt water had a different effect on Gremlins than regular water. I know that sounds like a really weird, like, nitpicking thing, but I've always wondered that.
And they would be right there near Disney World if they wanted to go a little farther south.
True.
I mean, it's possibilities, or that could be fun.
See a bunch of Gremlins crawl out of that would be really morbid. An actor inside of, like, a Mickey costume, and a bunch of Gremlins crawl inside of it, and then the Gremlins...
Yeah, Walt Disney would say, absolutely not.
That would be fantastic, though. But,
yeah.
no, you know, I feel like for a sequel to Gremlins, you would have to bring back... you'd have to bring back the original cast. I think that some of them, not all of them, maybe just a few of them, or maybe Billy died. I'd be okay with that.
I mean, I wouldn't be upset.
You know, or Billy's gone away. Maybe Gizmo is somewhere else, and someone new gets Gizmo, and maybe at the end, maybe have what's his girlfriend? I know the actress's name, but what's her name in the movie?
Kate.
What was it?
Kate.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe have Kate come back, like toward the end of the movie or something. Be like, I've dealt with this before. And, you know, give one of her stories. That was something I always loved in the movie. She always just had these long stories where she'd, like, zone out and she'd tell the story. And it's always something real tragic.
And the Lincoln story in part. I want to talk about part 2, but that's a different...
I'm sorry, I got you all over the place.
Yeah.
But, no, you know, the effects in this movie were great. The horror in this film was great. When the Gremlins were being evil, they were evil. I mean, just horrible. Terrified of them.
Yeah.
But when they were funny as hell.
I think I know we've kind of already talked about it briefly, but the theater scene is a great example of both.
Yeah.
Because when they're all just sitting around and you see them just being goofy, you know, some of them are just sitting there with cigarettes in their mouths and just smoking, doing whatever, picking their noses and shit. And there was that one that had little bags on his ears.
Yeah.
Like that shit cracks me up. And then you had that one hanging from the ceiling.
Yep.
And like some Shakespearean outfit and just falls. I don't know what the fuck that was, but it was just random and funny. And I think it's probably one of the funniest shit in the movie. So you have all that as they're watching Snow White, or even before they watch Snow White. And then once the movie reel stops and then they see the shadows, the horror just kicks right back in because
they all go monstrous.
Yeah, seeing their shadows coming to the screen would terrify anyone.
Yeah.
And then they start tearing through it. I mean, you go from this to that, and it doesn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel out of place. You're like, oh, shit. Like, your guard went down because you're laughing, and then now you're back to being tense because if they got a hold of them, they're going to shred them apart.
Yeah.
So...
And I think that's why this works so well as a family movie to watch on Christmas, because it's entertaining enough for the parents. There are adult jokes, and there's just enough comedy to where the kids enjoy it. But if the kids get scared, they're right there with mom and dad. They can hold on. It's the perfect example of a family sitting on a couch watching a movie, because the kids will laugh, and then the next second, the kids will sort of hold on tighter to their parents because they're scared. And that gives the parents a laugh. I'm sorry, but when you see your kid a little scared, it's kind of funny.
Sure.
But I feel like that's why this is such a good family film, because it has something for everyone. And you know, I think that a lot of movies from the 80s and even the 90s, I feel like that is why they did so well, because there's enough adult humor in it that the kids might not understand. It goes right over their heads. And there's just enough kid-friendly things in it to where the kids are having fun with it and the adults are happy because their kids are having fun. Like, I feel like Gremlins does that really well. And like you said, it all boils back down to they are very Looney Tune-esque. I almost... The only thing I can compare Gremlins to I feel like they're a bunch of frat boys.
No, this movie's a treat. I mean, for anybody, again, I understand this is a movie that is almost 40 years old, if you can believe it. Next year, man.
Wow.
Next year, 40 years old. And I know that not everyone may have seen it. There's a whole generation out there who may have never even heard of Gremlins, and that's fair at this point because this is not a film that has really kept a franchise alive, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, all we've got right now are 2 movies and an animated series on Max, which I don't even know how well that did as far as people viewing it. So I don't know if that renewed interest, if people got out there and started watching it or started rediscovering the movies. I don't know. But if you've never seen Gremlins, I mean, we've not even scratched the surface, really. I mean, that's just basic general,
Yeah.
you know, information that we have and just the love and praise we have for it. Hell, the Invention Convention, I never thought to call it that way, but the Invention Convention, that is a treasure trove of Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Especially for people who have a love for sci-fi. So many little things like that. Cameos abound if you're paying attention. And I don't know, it's such a fun movie that I've never gotten tired of.
Yeah. And
never once.
And I love the cast. Like as much as I don't like Zach Galligan, I liked him as like I wish he was like Billy in real life. I liked him as Billy.
He needs to be humbled.
Hoyt Axton.
Yeah.
Amazing actor, narrated in the film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of his cheesy inventions and everything. And the way that, you know, I love how when they're not working, he's like, yeah, I'll get that fixed. Oh, it's nothing, just a little issue. I'll recalibrate it. I'll do this, I'll do that. Like,
yeah.
Just, that's that
you gotta,
humor, you know?
Yeah, you gotta give him credit, though. Like, I'll give the character of, what's his name? Rand Peltzer.
Yeah.
Credit, okay? At least he's got ideas.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a man who has so many great ideas. He just needs the proper funding and maybe some additional help to refine these ideas. They could be billionaires if his inventions would actually work properly. Because you see some of the shit that he came up with, like the juicer.
Yeah.
You know, that looks pretty well designed, but it just has some flaws.
Yeah.
So he has great ideas. And I think that's what I love about it the most is because none of his inventions work properly. So there's not even one that's redeeming, which is unfortunate, but you understand where he's at, you know, like he's struggling. He's trying to get this shit going. The smokeless ashtray, it's just gushing smoke everywhere. It's like, God damn, you know?
And then, who was it that played his, Frances Lee McCain?
Oh, she's another one, kind of like we said last week, Mary Ellen Trainor. She's everybody's mom.
Yeah.
You know, you see her in a mom role here and there. Footloose.
Yeah.
She was Kevin Bacon's mom.
In this, she is so, the kitchen scene, she is so just, her ingenuity is just insane. And the gremlin in the microwave, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's gross, but I remember as a kid watching that, and I said ooh, but it was one of those, you know, it was one of those kid oohs where it's like, ew, cool, you know?
Ew, yeah. Gnarly.
This movie didn't stray away from being gross.
Yeah. But it wasn't gross in the sense of you can't tolerate it. It's just like, ooh. The right kind of gross and gore that just, it's more fascinating than revolting.
Well, and that was the cool thing about, you know, the Gremlins were so different that you weren't sure what, you know, you weren't sure what their drool was going to look like, you know, what color they were on the inside. You know, kids think morbid things like that. Like, I wonder what that thing looks like. Or, you know, maybe I was just a really morbid kid. That could be. No. That could be. But, I mean, I love the parents in this. I love, like I said, I like Billy in this. I do. And Phoebe Cates, loved her in this. And I keep seeing her, and I understand why you had a crush on her back in the day.
I did, man. I mean, she was just... she's like what we were talking about earlier. She's one of those actresses that I can't put into words. Like, it wasn't... And keep that in mind, too. I did not even know about Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where she has her topless scene and that was before this.
Yeah.
Had no idea that scene ever existed. I just had the biggest crush on her, and even as I got older, to where I could really understand my feelings, she's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, when I look at her, there's just something about her from head to toe. She's just gorgeous, and I could stare at her all day.
Yeah.
That's...
And that kind of takes us back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to point out. Yeah, it's just, that's what she did to me, and I can't explain it. And I was even telling you, and I'll just kind of lay this out there. There's somebody I've met in my life that damn close to looks a lot like her, at least in my mind. I mean, other people might not agree, but holy shit, you talk about having some trouble in my brain, because I was like associating, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do that. So, yeah.
Now, I got to point something out. Some performers that we don't see, but we hear, because a lot of people might not know this too. So, obviously, Gizmo was voiced by Howie Mandel, which a lot of people don't know. There's a few that I think are interesting. Some of the other Mogwai and Stripe himself, the main baddie, was voiced by Frank Welker, who was Fred, and I think he's still alive. He still voices Fred.
He does.
This one I didn't know. Peter Cullen.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Optimus Prime himself.
And it I want to narrow it down, because I've seen these names attached to them. And some of them I might be able to be like, yeah, I think maybe I could pick out their vocalization.
Yeah.
Like Frank, for example. I've heard his voice enough, not just being Fred, but just various characters over, because I mean, Frank Welker's a cartoon icon.
Yeah.
Voiceover icon. He has voiced so many characters. If you have watched a cartoon in your life, $10 you have watched something he has voiced something in. Almost guaranteed. Well, almost guaranteed.
And I'm seeing like Bob Bergen, who I know I've heard his voice somewhere. He was Gremlin number 4.
He was Bob Bergen. I'm almost positive has been, and I don't know if he is now, but he was like the primary voice of Porky Pig after Mel Blanc passed away. Like, he made that his mission.
Yeah.
I remember hearing a an interview with him where they were trying to figure out characters. Yes, he's still doing Porky Pig to this day. Awesome. But, people need a voice.
Yeah.
People need, if you're going to get into voice acting, you have to have that one voice that you can do that nobody else can do. And he said nobody was doing Porky.
Yeah.
And he said, now I made that my mission to be Porky. I'm going to be Porky Pig. Nobody else can do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be Porky. And he got it. So. And
then the other one I'll give some credit to, who I've heard, just because when I was a kid, I watched a lot of the show Doug, and he did some voices on Doug, and that's Fred Newman.
Fred Newman. I don't know his name.
Looking here, see what he was on a show called Livewire. He was on Doug, Between the Lions. He was on the Mickey Mouse Club. Been on quite a few things. I just know him from, he was in the first Doug movie, which is called Doug's First Movie. So,
okay.
But no, I mean, even the voice talent,
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize how much work goes into that. And
no.
And especially with puppets. Now, do you know what company was in charge of the puppets?
I feel like I read about it at one point, and I wanted to say that it was, what's his name? Chris Wallace, I think, was the guy. But I might be mistaking that for part 2. Because I thought at one point it was the same people, but then you kind of look at their designs, and maybe they just had better resources to make what they wanted. But let me double check.
The Gremlins were conceptualized by Chris Wallace for the first film, but Academy Award winner Rick Baker redesigned them for the sequel.
Okay, so I did have it right. Okay, so he probably got maybe a created by credit, or designed by credit, and then Rick Baker. I mean, I'm not going to knock his work either. I mean, dude's a legend. But yeah, Chris Wallace did an amazing job. And
I feel like the Gremlins, and I know I know part 2's for something, for another episode somewhere along the ways, but even if you look at the Gremlins in part 2, you can tell that they've leaned a little more toward the comedy, because I feel like they're a little bit more, they're a little more chunky.
And they're a lot more
animated.
Pronounced.
Yeah.
Like they're very their designs are very specific.
Yeah.
To kind of give them personality and things versus in the first one where it was just supposed to be like, well, they're all about the same.
It almost seemed like they were like a hive mind, like a virus or something in the first movie. And aside from Stripe, you know, their leader, which I'm sorry, but Stripe is pure nightmare fuel.
You know, Stripe is mean, but I would have to say Mohawk was more sadistic.
True.
Because while Stripe, I'll give him credit. He was a mean son of a bitch. But I think he was a lot more cunning.
Yeah.
Because you take a look at everything that he did, especially when it came to surviving. You know, at least Mohawk never had a survival situation that he had to get to. He was just torturing Gizmo the entire movie.
Yeah.
You know, and again, another day, but I'm just using that as a reference. With Stripe, he had his goal. He was being the leader pretty much and tried to always stay one step ahead. He was never cocky. He was always planning ahead so that when everything blew up, it was like, shit, I got to figure this out. And I've got to figure out what I'm going to do next. And what does he do? He tries to get away from Billy. He uses everything at his disposal in that mall to try and kill him.
Yeah.
From a chainsaw to a crossbow to a actual gun.
Yeah.
And all to get to the fountain to where he can regenerate. A plan. He's not just out to kill Billy. It's like, aha, a plan.
Yeah, and that, I think that's why I find Stripe to be like nightmare fuel to a degree, because you know the Gremlins are smart to a degree in the first film. Like you know that they're obviously they can communicate and you know they understand references and things like that. So they are fairly intelligent, but to see Stripe, you know, plan and do everything and then try to kill Billy and be calculated and, you know, be like, I'm going to kill this kid, then I'm going to get to the fountain, I'm going to make more gremlins, we're going to take over this town. Like, to me, that was terrifying. Like, this thing is not just some dumb animal or, you know, dumb creature. This thing means business. It wants to reproduce and take over the place. And he's got the most memorable death to me in any movie. I know that sounds weird, but I will even put it there. Like, not just like horror movies, but movies in general. Stripe has one of the most memorable deaths. They hit him with the lights. He basically melts. His skeleton comes up out of the fountain. I mean, come on. Like, as a kid seeing that, you're like, what just happened?
I'll even say this. The music, the way, like, we haven't even talked about that.
Yeah.
The whole Jerry Goldsmith jam, the Gremlins rag, as they call it, it's kind of catchy. But even in that scene, the terror that just pervades, like when he comes out and you're just seeing him bubbling on the floor, that I can't even describe what it sounds like or what it is, but it's just like this winding sound that kind of goes up and then back down. And then you hear the violins kind of come in and do the same thing and they copy it. But it's just so unnerving and eerie. And again, I love it because I think it just sets the mood properly, because everything about this movie is just a well-blended shake, I guess it would be the best way to put it, because you have all these ingredients and they work so perfectly together. And I don't see how you can't understand what makes all this work together.
Yeah.
When other people try to do this and fail, you're missing the big picture on how this works. You cannot favor one thing over another. You have to make sure that they work in tandem.
Yeah.
And it's just little things like that. I mean, you can look back in the movie and think of all the funny moments, but then you can look back and look at equally terrifying moments.
And I'll agree with you. Like,
works.
Everything that they did in this film, they made sure they were meticulous and they made it work. And I will even say this, even with all the technology we have today, if they were to do a sequel or anything, I feel like they would still have to do the puppets. I don't think maybe a little CGI, but I would not do a whole lot.
No, I would stick with puppets, and I would, if you're going to use CG, then help the puppets out. Like, if you wanted to do something with the puppets and you're worried that, you know, maybe you can't pull it off, figure out a way to do it with the puppets and then use CG to enhance it. Yeah. You know? But you have to have the physical manifestation of a gremlin, because I just don't think it's going to hit the same way as a CG creature.
Now, for some reason, I'm seeing in my mind. I'm seeing a scene. It wasn't in a movie, but I'm just that CG would work perfect for. I could see somebody. Let's say they did it in. Oh my lord! I just thought of something. You know, we talked about Evil Dead on a cruise, Gremlins on a cruise.
Yeah, Gremlins on a cruise. You have to keep them in the boat.
Gremlins.
But what are you supposed to do?
Gremlins shipwreck. But
holy shit!
Imagine being like down in the dark, like in the boiler room or something, and you find a flare or something, and you light the flare. It's burning, and all over the ceiling and the walls, and even on the floor, just nothing but gremlins. And maybe their eyes kind of glow in the dark when the light hits them. I could see CG for that. Have some actual physical puppets on the floor, maybe, and throw some in there, but then do some CGI. That would be terrifying.
Oh yeah.
And then the light goes, and then maybe the light goes out or the flare goes out, and you just hear that little Mogwai giggle that they have, the evil gremlin giggle, for that little comedy aspect. Whoever's in charge of Gremlins, throw us a bone. We'll do Gremlins on a boat.
Well, you'd think it would be Amblin, but I feel like Warner Brothers has a stake in it somehow, and that guy.
Oh, so you mean they'll make the movie and then they'll be heroic and they'll be brave and they'll never let it see the light of day.
Asshole.
I'm being a little extra today.
No, give it to him. Fuck that guy. I don't really know if I've got much more to say about the film. I mean, there's so many good little things. I know you didn't mention one voice actor. You missed one.
I'm sure I did. Who did I miss?
Michael Winslow.
Oh, shit.
Mr. Sound Effects from fucking Police Academy.
Damn.
Yeah.
Shit. And he's great.
Mm-hmm. I could definitely hear his vocalizations out of a few. Like, there's certain things that he does, and you could just be like, oh yeah, that's most definitely Michael Winslow.
Yeah. He's fun to watch. But, like, if you Google him and you watch him, and just to put this out here, if you want a real treat, Google Howie Mandel talking about voice acting, because it's hilarious, because he's like, oh, a lot of people don't know that I did Gizmo, and then he talks about all of these characters that he did. But he's like, if you really think about it, they all just sound like me, but it's just a little different. And he did, there's a show called Bobby's World that he did. Mm-hmm. And Bobby sounds just like Gizmo, just a little bit different in pitch. But it's hilarious because Howie talks about that all the time. And it's just,
I actually, this is like, I know it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but I always found it funny. Bobby's World, I knew the character of Bobby before that show came out because I saw Howie Mandel do that character on stage at a Comedy Store performance.
Yeah.
I think for the 15th anniversary of the Comedy Store, and he did that bit with Bobby. And then when I heard they were doing an animated series, I was like, oh shit, I know that character, I know that guy. And that was my first introduction to him. And then, of course, I started kind of seeing him here and there. He was in that movie Little Monsters. I think that was another movie that I was like, oh yeah, that's Howie Mandel. That's the guy, the funny guy with the funny voice.
There's one other actor who he's no longer with us, but I sort of knew that they were going to do a show about him before they did the show, and that was Louis Anderson. I believe the show was called Life with Louie. It was a little animated show. And I remember seeing him do something sometime where he was, talking, and he was talking about like him as a kid or something, and he was making jokes. And then I heard they were doing the show, and I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. So
I've heard his bits. I know we're going off topic. I don't care. I saw some. I miss Louis. Just thinking about some of his stand up. He was talking about his dad, and he's like, "You ever just be standing outside with your dad, just look at him and just smile at him?" Dad looks over and says, "What? Nothing. I don't know."
He was on a show, and maybe you'll remember the name of it, but he was on a show. There were a bunch of comedians on this show, but what they did on the show is they would ask a question to like whoever was playing the show, and there were a bunch of comedians sitting there. And it would be like, it would be either like a poll or like just a fact, and they would ask, and then somebody would chime up and say something. And normally they would joke, but then they would give like a real answer, and the person would say whether or not they thought that person's answer was true or not.
Is that Hollywood Squares?
Now, see, I thought it was Hollywood Squares at first, but the show that I remember, all the comedians were just sitting, like they were all just sitting in chairs with each other. And I For some reason, I can't remember the name, but I mean, there were some really funny responses, and Louis Anderson was one of the responses that was always great. Like, he always had something funny to say. I got you thinking now, don't I?
Damn it! I know the show you're talking about. Like, it's I can see it.
Yeah.
But I can't think of the name of it, and it's.
And I wish they would bring it back. I mean, I know there's not as many comedians that I would probably like to see on it these days, but
now was at the time? Was it a newer show?
I don't want to say it was too new. To me, the quality looked almost like it was early 2000s, maybe 2010s. But then again, I mean, quality of things, there's...
Sure. I had to pause for a moment because I was hoping that my computer locked up for just a brief second. I was like, no, don't ruin anything. I got worried. Hopefully everything's cool. Damn it. I know the show you're talking about.
Funny You Should Ask.
For life, man, I cannot...
It's called Funny You Should Ask.
Okay. Well, that's not the show.
I just Googled, and I mean, they had all kinds of comedians on it. If you get the chance to Google it, definitely check it out. And I know we've kind of gotten off of the subject, but
I got nothing else about Gremlins.
I don't either.
But,
if you wanna close out, you can. But anybody out there who hasn't watched Gremlins, stop living under a rock and watch it. Let your kids watch it, and don't take things so serious, because I'll tell you something, you guys will all enjoy it, and it'll make you closer as a family because everyone will just enjoy it together.
Yeah, like it's such a let loose, man. Let fantasy just run wild, man. If you don't even like Christmas, well, guess what? You got a friend in Kate. And her traumatic horror story. I'll let her share that one.
Yeah.
But Ramblers, let us know if you've seen Gremlins. If you've never seen Gremlins, I would love to hear from anyone who has never seen Gremlins. But if you have, definitely let us know your first experience with Gremlins. What was it? Because we shared ours. We want to hear yours. Tell us on whatever social media platform we happen to be bouncing around on. Twitter, Threads, some other things. But if you've got a lot more to say, send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. If you want to discuss horror with other people like you, join our Facebook group or join us on Discord. And you can even find us on Instagram, and you can support the show over on Patreon, and you can also leave a 5-star review on your favorite app that you're using. I know that there's a lot of them shutting down here lately. Like, everyone I seem to be going to seems to be shutting down. I don't know what the hell is going on. So I'm still searching for my new podcast home. Where not where we're going to post, but where I'm going to listen. Because it's just, I know some people are like, well, use Spotify because you're already, on the platform. And it's like, yeah, but ads, I'm trying to avoid that if I can. And convenience, I want something to download. The ones that I used to download. Every time I had it all set up. Maybe I'm just not looking hard enough in my settings. That's my fault. I just liked what I had. They were more convenient and easy, and these other apps are more complicate matters.
Yeah.
If you're using Spotify, good for you. And look and see if we posted any questions and polls, And if we ever start doing crazier stuff on Spotify, we'll let you know, and we'll do all those things. And finally, if you prefer a central hub, keep up with any and all things at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Also, be sure to check out shop.fangoria.com/pencilpaperproductions for 20% off your purchase over at fangoria.com. Also, finally, we want to remind everybody that this will be our last show of the year. We're taking a couple of weeks off, but we will be back on January 26th. To terrify your days or your weeks or however it goes. I don't know. But January 26th, Horror Ramblings Season 3. Maybe if we could start off the year with a guest like we did last year, boy, that would be something. But we'll see.
And remember, guys, treat your kids like you treat gremlins. Don't give them too much water. Don't feed them after midnight. And stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.